Hello and welcome to the Black Cat Bushcraft channel. Today my goal was to come out and set up a very basic land navigation course that I could practice doing some compass work on. I have a couple of reasons for doing this. Number one is it'll give me just an easy area to practice in just from time to time to keep my compass navigation skills sharp. Number two is it'll give me an easy area to check on my compasses and make sure that they're still reading true. Also, if I attain any new compasses in the future, it'll give me a place to check those and make sure they're reading accurate. For example, I recently purchased this little Silva sighting compass. It's a miniature sighting compass. It's got the mirror and everything on it, but I haven't had a chance to really test this thing in the field yet to find out how much I actually trust it. And rather than take it out when it really counts in the woods, I'd rather have an area like this that I could check up on it with another compass that I know reads accurate. So it just gives me an area to test my equipment and also keep my skills sharp. But number two is I teach a Pathfinder youth group of about 15 kids. Most of them are pre-teens, and we're going to be introducing them to compass navigation later in the summer. And I want to have an area that'll be very easy for them to learn the basics of, sighting with that compass, taking an azimuth, and learning to navigate with that. And rather than send them off in on a nav course that goes back in the woods that gets a lot more challenging, I'd rather keep them out in an open area where I can see them as they navigate through the entire course. So that's my goal, set up a basic area. This will be multi-purpose for us, for me, and for my youth group, and should be fun to do. So I thought I'd bring you guys along for this. Stick with me and we'll get started. To get started, I just have a few basic supplies that I'm carrying in my haversack. I have some heavy cotton canvas, which I'll use for my tags that I'll tack to the tree. I've got some brads, a hammer to drive those in. I've got my notebook and pen, which I'll keep track of the bearings that I set up. And then of course I've got my compass, my main compass, which is the Sunto MC2, and then I have that little mini Silva, which I'm also going to use to check behind, so one checking the other. So that's it, very simple supplies to set up a nav course. All right, going to set up my first tag here. Now to get started, you can see my first tag right here, and I'm going to be shooting a bearing that goes out to the very point tree right here. So again, I'm going to put my back to this tag, and I'm going to use my compass to shoot the bearing to here, and that'll be the point that I set up my second tag. Right, so it looks like my first bearing is going to be 203 degrees. So now that I know it's 203 degrees on my compass, I'm going to write down a 203 degrees here on this tag. So right now I have my back at this 203 degree tag. I've shot my bearing out to that tree. And so I've put my compass up. Now, just to have an accurate pace count, I'm going to pace count that as we walk to that tree. All right, here we are at the tree that we shot to. And as I pace counted, it came to 77 paces for me. And I know personally that my pace count is 67 paces on average to make 100 meters. So this is a little over 100 meters from the first point. So what I'm going to do is write down 203 degrees. And I'm going to write down that it was 77 paces for me. And now I have a record of the first step on my nav course. The next step is I'm going to attach a tag to this tree, and I'm going to put it on the back side so it's not visible until you get here, just to make it a little more challenging. And then I'm going to shoot another bearing out somewhere here across the field to make our second point. So the next point that I'm going to use is there's a tree that kind of sticks out right here that's very visible. And that's going to change the bearing by about 90 degrees. So I'm going to go ahead and shoot to that right now. And it comes to 147 degrees. So now I'm going to record 147 on my tag. Just flip that up and you can see the 147. All right, so we're here at this next point, and I'm going to try to set the tag up in such a way that no one gets poison ivy, because there is a poison ivy vine here on this tree. I'm going to put the tag a little bit low, just because it's a clear area that nobody will have to touch that vine. All right, at this point, I'm going to get my back right up to this tree, and I'm going to shoot my next bearing. And what I'm going to do is shoot back across the field here, and there's a tree that I can see really well. It's a little bit tough to get your back to this tree, but I'm going to do the best I can to try to be accurate with it. So it looks like my reading's going to be 286 degrees. So now I just have to pace count from here across the field. This one's going to be in excess of 100 meters for sure. So the tree that I shot is here. And there's two side by side there. The one that I shot is the one that's more in front. So I'm going to head over that way, pace count it off. All right, so those are the trees that we shot to right here, but it's really hard to get there because that stuff's like 7-8 foot tall right there, which is hard to tell at a distance. So what I've done is just kind of made a path here. You can see the tag here right on the side of the tree, so it's definitely not visible from the previous tag. All right, let's take a new bearing. Always want to get your back as close as you can to your target. From here, I'm going to shoot to the corner, far corner over here. So our next bearing will be 190 degrees. I'll mark it on the tag and then we'll pace count it off. All right, to get to this point was 80 paces. So I know my bearing was 190 degrees for 80 paces. Make sure to keep track of that when I'm setting up my course. Right at this point, I'm going to shoot to an apple tree that's on the water fur out here. Just to show you what I'm shooting to, there's an apple tree right here on this water fur. I'm going to zoom in so you can see it. And that's where the next tag is going to go. So I went ahead and got the tag set up in the apple tree. It was a little bit dense to get in there, so I didn't film that part. However, my new bearing is 298 degrees, and that's going to run them across this field over here to this little grouping of trees. I'm going to zoom in right there. This little group right here. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and head over there and get my next tag set up. This will be the shortest little distance that they have to travel. Right here looks like a great spot for my last tag. And I can actually see back up to the beginning tag from where I am. It's probably about 100 meters. The last bearing back to the starting point will be 66 degrees. So what I've done here on this last point is just left it as a question mark. If they open it up, there's no bearing there. But on the very back side, just in case, I've got the 66 degree bearing that will take them back to the starting point. But what I want to be able to do after they get a little better at this is to be able to figure that last bearing by putting sticks in the ground and dead reckoning that last bearing out. And that prevents having to backtrack through all the points that you've been through, being able to figure out from where you are back to where you started. That's an important navigation skill and something that I'll talk about in the next video. All right, so here we are back at our starting point at 203 degrees, and it was actually 105 paces for me from the last point to here, so I'm going to make sure to record that. That's one of the key things with this, is to make sure that you record all of your pace counts. So now in my notebook that I carry in my haversack, I have the coordinates for my nav course. It's basically 8 tags total. We've got our starting tag. We set out from there. That took us to our first point. We've got our second point, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh point, and then the 8th point returns us back to here. So that's a great start, I think, for a beginner's nav. So this was our starting point here. And just to give you an idea of what kind of territory we covered for this nav course, you can see that tree out there on the point was our first actual stop. We went across to that wood line there. From that wood line, we came all the way back across this field over into this corner over here. From that corner, we shot across to the other corner. We came all the way back out here at our longest distance to this, actually it's a peach tree, not an apple tree. And then we shot from there over to the wood line, and from the wood line, we come back over to where we are right here. So the nice thing about this course is I can see the entire field that the students or that our youth group will be traveling over with this, and nobody should get lost, or if anybody has any problems, I can see it from the starting point at all times. So I like that for safety. All right, so that was really quick and simple to set up this basic nav course out here on our family's land. The nice thing about this is it's out in an open field, and all the students will have to do is skirt the edge of the woods. They won't really have to go back into the trees a lot. Later on, I'm gonna run another course that goes back into the woods when they're ready for that. Right now, these are preteens with no compass experience, so I wanna keep things as simple as possible. Again, I want to get these guys to the point where they can figure their back bearing to camp at any point. So at some time, I may go back on one of these points and say, return to camp from this point. And rather than having to backtrack all their previous points and do reverse azimuths, I'd rather them be able to figure on the ground how to shoot from any one point straight back to camp. So that's something that we'll work on as we go forward. But again, just a basic nav course to keep me sharp and to have the ability to teach younger students how to nav. So in my mind, navigation is probably one of the most underrated skills for the woodsman, and yet probably one of the most important, especially if you frequently go on land that you're not familiar with or that you don't know already. To go and practice your skills, you know, camping, hiking, that type of thing. It's very important to shoot those azimuths and have the confidence of knowing that you can get back where you came from if you travel over distance. So if this is a skill that you know that you need to work on, maybe this is a good idea for you to set up a little nav course in a familiar area and get some practice with that compass. You know, a lot of people buy a compass and stick it in their bag, but they're not familiar with how to use it. It's definitely important to practice with it because it is a perishable skill, and if you don't know how to use it to start with, then this is a useless item in your bag. So maybe you can get a friend to set up a compass course for you, or you set up one for them, and then that way you guys can challenge each other. And you don't have to own land to be able to do this. You could do this in a public park. You could even do it in an urban area. The possibilities are limitless where it comes to setting up a little nav course. You don't have to drive nails in anything. You just tie some tape around. Or if it's just for maybe a day or a week or something, you just use, you know, painter's tape and stick the tape on something. So you can get creative, and it's definitely a worthwhile thing to practice with this compass, because again, it gives you just that much more confidence when you go in the woods. I appreciate your interest and your time. I hope to be talking to you guys with another video again very soon. And until the next one, take care and God bless.